And we are following more breaking news out of Atlanta. A hotel at Atlantic Station right now forced to evacuate. Come on in, we have results. And really, let's take a look at how we got to these results. And I actually want to show you, we just got a copy. This is the federal indictment. I think Ariana put it really well there. She said this throws this case into limbo. And that is what happens here. Here is some more important context. Republicans need some Democratic votes to advance any legislation in the Senate. Even though Republicans have a majority, they don't have enough to get it done all on their own. We've been talking not just all day, but really almost every day for the last 2 weeks about these personal connections and personal memories so many people here in Plains have of not only President Carter, but also First Lady Rosalynn Carter. No matter who wins this election in November, will you support the eventual winner? The criticism that some of your opponents have raised is that they say you did not vote in 2016 and 2020. Is that true?
Well, I did vote in 2024 for Donald Trump.
But did you vote in 2016 and 2020?
There was a time.
When you come to us, we want to make sure that you are hearing confirmed on the record truth. A lockdown was triggered, a hard lockdown, following what we now know was a fatal shooting. A partial government shutdown is now all but certain this weekend. Lawmakers have left town for a planned recess. And right now, there is still no deal in place to fund the Department of Homeland Security. The majority's decision here means effectively that Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis's time leading this prosecution is now over. And this has gotten a lot of attention.
He's really good.
He is really good, and he's got a nickname to prove it. The 21-year-old, known as the Quad God, has a 5-point lead after the short program. And I want to draw your attention right now to one of Georgia's prominent bellwether counties. This is Baldwin County. We're looking at the 2020 results here. This time in 2020, Joe Biden, the Democrat, carried this Baldwin County bellwether. Let's take a look now, though, at the 2024 results. You see things have flipped. Donald Trump flipping Baldwin County, flipping that bellwether county, carrying both Baldwin and Georgia and the country. We talked today to two political experts, one Democrat, one Republican, about how we got here and what this means for their parties.
Relief and a lot of validation.
Remarkable, honestly. And shocking, because we had gone in thinking it was going to be a much closer horse race than it really turned out to be.
Fal Sabak, a Democratic strategist, and Spiro Amburn, a Republican strategist, reacting to a dramatic election night in Georgia. What worked for Republicans in Georgia this cycle?
Turnout. Donald Trump expanded those margins in rural counties. He shaved Joe Biden's margins from 2020.
Amburn arguing the race came down to two key issues.
It was the economy and public safety.
Democrats now begin the process of trying to make sense of a stinging loss in a state they hoped to carry. What went wrong for Democrats in Georgia this year?
We knew that women were going to come out in full force. I think just hitting them with just the abortion talking point might have not gotten them to where we needed them to be, which was to vote for us.
But Sabak cautions just hours after the race was called, it's still too early to point to one singular tipping point.
It's not just one factor is going to get you to 50%. You have to have a bunch of different variables.
For Republicans, now their attention turns to Inauguration Day and what happens next.
Trump has to govern. I think he has a golden opportunity.
Both strategists agreed on this. It is a margins game. And while Trump carried Georgia decisively this year, we're still a closely divided state with about 98% of results reported right now in our state. The former president and projected president-elect looks to carry the state by about 2%.
So we are just north of Dahlonega on a private water trout fishery.
I can almost feel your blood pressure go down as you get close to the water.
Always. Closer I get, more I hear the water, calmer I get. So then it's time to go to work.
What does a perfect day on the water when you're guiding look like?
Despite most people think it's not catch 100 fish. I like to see the growth. I like my repeat customers, but I feel like after a day on the water with me, if they can't get out and be fully confident and efficient on their own, I didn't do my job.
What keeps you coming back?
Oof, feels like home, more so than my house does. I try not to keep my house cozy because I want to leave it. And whether it be this river or any river across the world, they could speak a completely different language around me. The river speaks my language.
We've got an election coming up in November. When you look ahead to it, what worries you the most?
Man, right now it's who's going to be in it. Kind of just with the recent news and all that stuff.
Right now, your biggest focus is just on who's actually going to be on the ballot.
Yeah, the ballot's the biggest question mark. Like, will Biden make it there? What happens with Trump's legal stuff?
What are the two biggest issues that will govern how you vote?
The foreign policy stuff, the foreign relations stuff. If someone comes out and has a clear plan on what they're going to do, what they want to do, I would like to see that, and that would probably entertain my vote more than anything else. And then secondary would kind of be the economy stuff. Maybe it doesn't affect my business as much with, whether it's high inflation or not, but I know for the guys that work for me and all that, it gouges them really hard, just gas prices alone. It's not a short drive to get anywhere here in North Georgia for the most part, so that really chews into their wallet and, is an annoyance to me as well.
You told us about what worries you. You told us about your big issues. We always end on this question. What are you optimistic about?
I like the fact that more people are questioning just the narratives they're told. It leads into a healthier system.
This all turns on comments John King made during an extended interview with us last week. King, a Republican and military veteran, alleged Democratic Senators Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff ignored his pleas to help Afghans who worked with America during the country's collapse in 2021.
When Afghanistan was imploding, as a result of just President Biden and the administration wanted to rush out of there, I was getting calls from Afghans saying, "Can you help get me out?" And I called, both Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock, and I says, "I need some help." They wouldn't even respond to my call.
You never got a response.
Never got a response.
But emails recently obtained by the 11 Alive political team from the offices of Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff appear to show that King, in fact, was in contact with them at that time. In one exchange between a King staffer and an Ossoff staffer on August 26, 2021, King's staffer wrote, "Thank you for all of the help from your office over the past few days. Commissioner King said he and Senator Ossoff have had several productive conversations since last night. We talked with King again today to ask him about the apparent discrepancy."
By the time they engaged us, the crisis had been over.
King argued his exchanges with Ossoff and Warnock staffers, which, according to the emails, happened after the Capitol fell but before the last U.S. troops left, were too late to help, and only happened after King criticized the government's response in an interview at the time.
Calling me a week later, my goodness, come on. Nobody reasonably expects. That is somebody trying to cover their rear ends. And you know what? That is what politicians do.
Why would your staffer, though, say it was a productive conversation that you all had if, as you're telling it now, it didn't get the job done?
It didn't get the job done.
But why would your staffer then say it was productive?
See, Zach, at that time, what it was is it was a glimmer of hope that something could be done. But by then, it became blatantly clear that the Biden administration wanted to turn the page because they wanted the photo op.
Some people might argue that your story has been changing over the last week. What do you say to that?
My story has not changed. Results matter. They always matter. Getting my Afghan partners out of Afghanistan alive was the task. And these two senators and their staff failed miserably.
Now, these are still the early days of the 2026 Senate campaign. The Republican primary is still about a year away.
I've never seen it as bad as it is today.
Pete Skandalakis leads the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia. A former district attorney himself, he says the current state funding plan doesn't cover the needs of local prosecutors, making it harder for district attorneys like Wright Barksdale to enforce the law.
If it's not addressed quickly, you're going to see DA's offices start to just fall apart at the seams.
The pay for state-funded assistant district attorneys in Georgia starts at about $60,000, according to Skandalakis. Many counties supplement those funds, but according to him, particularly in circuits outside of major cities, it's often not enough. Statewide, roughly 10% of state-funded assistant district attorney positions were vacant at the end of February, he said.
We are the lowest paid prosecutors in the Southeast.
And even in a circuit where all the state-funded prosecutor and other staff positions are filled, like Barksdale's Okmulgee Judicial Circuit that includes Putnam and Jasper counties southeast of Atlanta, the DA says the budget doesn't cover the manpower needed to handle the caseload. On a recent visit, he assembled all but 2 of his state-paid employees. They're responsible for an 8-county circuit, and they all fit inside a jury box. Put your hand up if you feel that your office right now is stretched too thin. Brent Cochran was one of the people with his hand raised.
We just try to do the best we can.
A senior assistant district attorney, he says he's carrying close to 650 cases, ranging from misdemeanors to murders. This entire table, all of these boxes, and 2 additional carts, these are all just the cases that you are responsible for?
Yeah.
One guy?
One guy.
The workload forces prosecutors to triage their caseloads, focusing resources on the most serious crimes at the expense of other cases. Is what you're talking about, there are situations where your office is going to offer a plea agreement that includes no time behind bars.
Absolutely.
Just to get a nonviolent felony off of your caseload.
Absolutely.
And in other situations, despite a state statute known as Marsy's Law that requires notification, Barksdale says the staffing crunch means sometimes crime victims aren't updated on developments in their case.
Are there times that a victim is not contacted? Yes.
It adds up to a situation, according to Barksdale, that's unsustainable. There are going to be people who hear you saying all of this, and they're going to think, this is an elected district attorney blowing the whistle on himself.
The truth is the truth. And what I'm telling you is victims are not being served, and public safety as a whole across this state is taking a hit because district attorneys' offices are not properly funded.
A warning sign before a potential crisis in criminal justice. Zach Merchant, 11 Alive News investigates.